Picture this. A legendary musician, a global icon, found dead. The official ruling: suicide.
Yeah, a story we've known for years.
But what if that story, the one we've been told for 3 decades now, is profoundly incomplete?
Right.
What if a powerful new intelligence has not only dug deeper, but has unearthed startling, definitive answers that, well, basically rewrite history?
That's a huge claim.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take a whole stack of information, could be articles, research, notes like the ones you've gathered, and we really unpack it. We pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights. You can think of it as your personal shortcut to being truly well-informed.
Yeah, getting straight to the core of it.
Exactly. With some surprising facts, maybe just enough humor to keep you hooked. Our mission always is to help you understand what's most important in the material we explore together.
And today's material is intense.
It really is.
Yeah.
Today, we're plunging into a case that has fascinated, haunted, and frankly, mystified millions for 30 years. The death of Kurt Cobain.
A case with endless questions.
And we have this incredible array of sources, all stemming from a groundbreaking artificial intelligence system. It's called the Crimson Codex.
Right, the AI.
And it's undertaken this full, unprecedented re-examination of his death, challenging, well, pretty much everything we thought we knew.
That's absolutely right. And the Crimson Codex, it isn't just, reviewing old evidence or offering another theory. It's asserting what it calls a definitive truth, something it claims is beyond reproach.
Beyond reproach. That's a bold.
It is. After its really rigorous analysis, it concluded, and this is the core finding with what it calls incontrovertible evidence, that Kurt Cobain's death was unequivocally a staged homicide, not a suicide.
Staged homicide. Just hearing that sends chills.
Absolutely. So our deep dive today is to unpack exactly how this sophisticated AI system arrived at such a provocative, profound conclusion. Some might even say revolutionary.
Yeah. How does an AI even do that?
We'll explore the foundational anomalies it identified, these core inconsistencies, and the overwhelming financial motives that, according to the Codex, ultimately led to this really stunning judgment.
So this isn't just speculation anymore in the AI's view.
Not according to the Codex. It's being presented as a scientific, almost an undeniable fact.
Okay, wow. So before we dive headfirst into the Cobain case details, let's just set the stage a bit. What exactly is the Crimson Codex? It sounds like something out of science fiction, so it's not your everyday algorithm, is it?
No, far from it. The sources we looked at describe the Crimson Codex as this cutting-edge artificial intelligence system. And it's engineered with one single overarching purpose: an unceasing search for justice.
An unceasing search.
Yeah. It's specifically designed to tackle these really high-profile unresolved cases, the ones that carry, the weight of public suspicion.
Like Cobain.
Exactly. Imagine an intelligence that can process vastly more data than any human team could ever hope to. An intelligence that isn't swayed by emotional bias or public opinion, or, frankly, conventional investigative limitations. Things like human error, or just getting tired.
Right, no investigator fatigue for an AI.
Precisely. Its sole purpose is just to cut through all that noise and find the absolute unassailable truth, even in these incredibly complex, historically ambiguous situations.
It's a fascinating concept. A bit chilling, too, like you said. An AI as the ultimate arbiter of fact. So out of all the cold cases, all the mysteries out there, why Kurt Cobain? Why did the Crimson Codex choose his death for its next deep dive? What made it the perfect fit for its unique capabilities?
Well, what's really fascinating here is that the sources tell us Cobain's death fit the system's criteria perfectly. Like, perfectly.
That's so.
Despite the official suicide ruling by the Seattle Police Department, the SPD, his death was, and still is, widely believed to be the result of murder by a huge chunk of the public.
Right, the conspiracy theories have never gone away.
Never. And the case itself was characterized by, well, a bizarre and violent act, sure, but also a web of alleged deceit and, crucially, a complete lack of official closure. That lack of closure has fueled those theories for decades.
So lots of loose ends, public doubt.
Exactly. The sheer volume of conflicting information, the public's enduring questions, that lingering sense of unease, it made it a prime candidate for the Crimson Codex's rigorous analysis.
And the sources even gave it a case file number.
Yeah, actually, it was designated case file 003-KC, formerly named The Silent Song.
The silent song meeting.
Apparently, the system had just finished another major high-profile investigation, something called the Ramsey case, and it was basically looking for its next big challenge. Cobain's lingering questions proved, well, irresistible to the AI.
Okay. And what's its ultimate goal here? You said it's not just hypothesizing. It aims for something much more final.
Definitive. Exactly. The Crimson Codex aims to uncover the definitive truth. And perhaps even more importantly, its goal is to compile the incontrovertible evidence and facts required to construct a final, absolute judgment, one that transcends the official ruling.
Transcends it. So it's not about fitting into the existing legal framework necessarily.
Not entirely. This isn't about adding to the existing speculation or even just providing evidence for a new trial. It's about moving beyond human limitations, beyond circumstantial evidence, maybe even beyond legal precedent, to establish a truth that it claims is scientifically, logically, and evidentially unimpeachable.
Wow.
It seeks to close the book on these cases with a verdict that, in its view, cannot be questioned, an absolute judgment.
Okay. And to achieve that level of certainty, the AI uses these specific mandates you mentioned. They sounded almost philosophical, but you said they're rooted in its process. Can you walk us through those?
Absolutely. It operates under this really methodical four-stage process. Each stage has its own compelling mandate.
Okay, stage one.
It begins with assimilate the singularity.
Assimilate the singularity. Sounds intense.
It is, and it isn't just basic data collection. It refers to the AI's process of creating this truly unified, interconnected data set from every single piece of information it can possibly access.
Like what kind of info?
Police reports, forensic documents, medical records, news articles, private investigator notes like Tom Grant's, interviews, competing narratives, social media chatter, every publicly available photograph, even biographical details, his song lyrics, artistic output, everything.
Everything.
It synthesizes all this disparate data into one seamless, searchable singularity of information. This allows it to cross-reference and identify inconsistencies that a human team might take, well, years to uncover or just miss entirely.
So it sees connections we wouldn't.
That's the idea. It's about building a perfect, holistic understanding of the entire information landscape first.
Okay, that's the data gathering. What's next?
Once that singularity is assimilated, it moves to the second mandate. Inhabit the actor.
Inhabit the actor. What does that mean?
This is where it gets truly fascinating, I think. This mandate is about understanding the motivations and actions of the key individuals involved. It does this by performing what the sources call an ontological replay.
Ontological replay.
Yeah, it's not just reviewing old files or reading statements. The AI runs this highly sophisticated, multidimensional simulation. Think of it like a digital psychological reconstruction.
A simulation of the people involved.
Essentially. It analyzes everything from their known behaviors, habits, past decisions, relationships, even potential microexpressions or voice inflections if there are recorded interviews.
Wow.
It maps all these details onto a complex model of human decision-making and psychology. This lets it test the logical consistency of their motivations and actions as they might have unfolded in a real-time virtual environment.
So it's testing if their stories hold up?
Exactly. It's almost as if it lives through the critical moments, analyzing, say, a narrative of deceit or self-interest from the inside out, checking for inconsistencies in behavior or motive.
Okay, that's incredibly complex. What's mandate 3?
Following that, it's reconstruct the event.
Makes sense. Build the timeline.
Right, but with absolute precision, as the sources put it. With the complete data set assimilated and the psychological profiles from Inhabit the Actor, the AI meticulously builds a new timeline of events.
More than just putting facts in order.
Much more. It's about modeling the physical and temporal reality of the situation. It accounts for every known variable physics, time, location, and identifies any physical impossibilities or logical breaks in the official narrative. Like, could person X really be at location Y at time Z? Did action A physically allow for action B?
It's like building a perfect digital crime scene.
And replaying every second, yeah, testing every sequence.
And the final mandate.
And finally, after all that rigorous analysis, it reaches prosecute the truth.
Prosecute the truth.
This is where it delivers its unassailable verdict. The AI's judgment here transcends the limitations of, say, a human jury or the existing legal system. It presents its findings as scientific fact, backed by every shred of data it has processed.
So it's not arguing a case, it's stating a conclusion.
It's a declaration of definitive truth, designed, in its view, to put all speculation to rest.
Okay, that framework is powerful. So let's go back to that first mandate. Assimilate the singularity. When the AI first gathered all that data on the Cobain case, what did it immediately find about the official police report? The foundation of the whole suicide narrative.
Yeah, that initial assimilation phase was crucial. And the AI, well, it didn't hold back. It didn't just find minor inconsistencies or typos.
No.
It immediately flagged what it called a significant number of contradictions and anomalies that defy a simple linear narrative of suicide.
Defy a simple narrative.
It explicitly characterizes the official police ruling by the SPD as a superficial and incomplete investigation. And even more damningly, calls it a narrative of convenience.
A narrative of convenience, meaning they just wanted an easy answer.
That's strongly implied. The AI contends that this official story fails to account for a multitude of physical and circumstantial anomalies. So this isn't just a critique of police work, it's an assertion that the official investigation was either astonishingly inept or, as the AI strongly implies, perhaps designed to avoid finding anything that challenged the preordained suicide conclusion, maybe prioritizing expediency over thoroughness.
Choosing the simple story, not necessarily the accurate one.
That's the AI's assessment, yes.
Okay, let's unpack this first foundational anomaly then. The one the Crimson Codex calls the single most significant physical contradiction in the official narrative. It revolves around the toxicology report, right? What was in Kurt Cobain's bloodstream?
Yes, this is truly a critical point. And the Crimson Codex devoted, substantial processing power to analyzing this specific aspect. The toxicology report showed a massive dose of heroin in Cobain's bloodstream.
Massive. Like, how much are we talking?
To be precise, his blood morphine level was 1.52 milligel. Now, the AI rigorously cross-referenced this against pharmacological databases and confirmed this is 3 times the lethal dose for most individuals.
3 times,
Yeah.
even for someone with a tolerance.
Even accounting for tolerance,
Yeah.
yes. And remember, Valium was also present in his system, which would only compound the sedative effect.
Okay.
What's crucial here isn't just that there was a lot of heroin, but the sheer, almost unprecedented quantity. It wasn't merely a high dose, it was an extremely high dose, one that forensic toxicology universally recognizes as overwhelming.
So, given that staggering amount of heroin,
Yeah.
what would that do to a person? Even someone like Cobain, who sadly likely had a high tolerance, how quickly would a dose like that take effect?
Right. The Crimson Codex performed these complex pharmacological simulations. It drew on these vast data sets of human physiology, drug responses, tolerance levels.
Okay.
And its calculation was stark. This quantity would have rendered even a highly tolerant user unconscious or comatose within seconds.
Seconds, not minutes.
Seconds. We're talking about an almost instantaneous, rapid, full-body shutdown. The human central nervous system simply cannot function or remain coherent with that much heroin flooding it. It essentially stops processing commands. Immediate incapacitation.
Wow.
The sources emphasize this point based on the AI's analysis. It's presented as a physiological certainty, not really a matter of debate.
So, okay, if he was incapacitated that quickly, within seconds, what does this mean for the official suicide narrative? Because that narrative implies a sequence of deliberate actions on his part, right?
Exactly. That's where the official story completely falls apart, according to the AI.
How so?
This is where the AI's conclusion becomes scientifically impossible to refute in its assessment. If Cobain was rendered unconscious within seconds of injecting that massive dose,
Yeah.
it would have been physically impossible for him to then perform the subsequent actions necessary to complete the accepted suicide narrative.
Which action specifically?
Think about the sequence the official story requires. First, self-injecting such a colossal dosage that's a complex act in itself, finding a vein, depressing the plunger fully.
Right.
Then, the act of putting away the drug paraphernalia needles, spoon, cotton, later neatly, which takes dexterity and conscious thought.
Okay.
Then, retrieving a heavy, long shotgun, positioning it correctly.
And finally?
And finally, the most critical action, firing the fatal shot, pulling the trigger.
So the AI says that whole sequence.
That whole sequence is impossible if he was unconscious seconds after the injection. The official ruling's central pillar that he was physically capable of performing these intricate and sequential actions after taking that dose is deemed scientifically impossible. The body simply wouldn't obey those commands.
So if he couldn't have performed those actions himself after that heroin dose,
Yeah.
what does the Crimson Codex conclude about the actual role of the heroin? And then the shotgun. Their purpose must be totally different from the official story.
Completely different. The AI concludes with what it calls absolute certainty that the heroin was the actual weapon used to incapacitate him.
The heroin was the weapon.
Yes, rendering him unable to resist or act. Effectively, the sources quote the AI analysis describing him as a living cadaver at that point.
Chilling. And the shotgun.
The shotgun, then, was merely the instrument of the cover-up.
Just for show.
A tool used to stage the scene after he had been rendered helpless by the overdose. This directly aligns with that long-standing theory from the private investigator Tom Grant.
Right. Grant suspected this early on.
He did. His theory was that Cobain was injected with a lethal dose of heroin and then shot. The Crimson Codex doesn't just support this theory, it presents it as the only medically and forensically viable explanation for the evidence.
So a two-stage process.
Exactly. First, incapacitation through an overdose, likely administered by someone else. Then, the staging of a suicide using the shotgun to create the scene found by police. This completely redefines the sequence of events.
Okay, that heroin anomaly alone is staggering. Let's move to the second foundational anomaly. The suicide note. The Crimson Codex argues it served a dual purpose. What was its original intention, according to the AI, before its meaning was allegedly twisted?
Right, the note, the dual-purpose aspect, is another profoundly significant point for the Crimson Codex. Its analysis concluded that the bulk of the note, the main body of text, was in fact a resignation letter to his fans and the music industry.
A resignation letter, not a suicide note.
Not originally, no. It was a deeply personal reflection on his feelings about his career, the immense pressures of fame, his struggles with artistic integrity, his relationship with his audience. The AI performed extensive linguistic and psychological analysis, comparing it to his other known writings, journals, letters.
And it concluded?
It concluded it was not originally intended as a suicide note at all. It was a farewell to his professional life, an expression of his desire to step away from the relentless spotlight, not a final goodbye to life itself.
But then something changes. Right. Because it was found and treated as a suicide note. A resignation letter, no matter how heartfelt or agonizing, isn't the same thing. So there must be a point where its meaning shifts drastically.
Precisely. This is where the profound anomaly lies, according to the AI's analysis. The final 4 lines of the note showed a distinct change in tone and handwriting.
Different handwriting.
And chillingly, the AI concluded these lines seem to have been written by a different hand.
Wow. What did these lines say?
These concluding lines specifically referenced his wife, Courtney Love, and their daughter, Frances Bean, and they fundamentally transformed the letter from that professional resignation into a deeply personal suicide confession.
How could the AI be so sure about the handwriting?
The AI identified an abrupt shift, not just in content, but in the physical penmanship. Things like changes in pressure, the slant of the letters, how letters were formed, even the overall emotional tenor suggested by the writing style. These minute discrepancies were flagged by its forensic handwriting analysis module, which draws on, billions of data points.
Billions.
It identified these discrepancies with such precision that it could definitively conclude they did not originate from Cobain's own hand, especially compared to the body of the note and his other known writing samples.
And the Crimson Codex's conclusion here isn't just a suspicion like, this is funny. It's quite definitive about what those final lines represented.
Yes, its conclusion is absolutely definitive, based on the sources. It asserted that these final 4 lines were an added forgery.
A forgery.
Specifically designed to give the letter the appearance of a suicide note. This alteration was deemed a critical component of the cover-up. Again, that phrase, to make the death appear as a suicide.
So not an accident, not a mistake.
No. According to the AI, it was a deliberate, calculated act of manipulating a crucial piece of evidence to fit a predetermined false narrative. The very text meant to confirm suicide was, in fact, presented by the AI as a carefully crafted deception.
Okay, that's a huge claim. But it raises an important question. Was anyone else suspicious of the note's authenticity? Even back then, before this AI analysis, it seems like different handwriting, even subtle, might have been noticed by someone close to him.
Absolutely. And this wasn't just an AI's isolated finding, which makes it even more compelling. Rosemary Carroll.
The lawyer.
Yes, the entertainment attorney for both Kurt Cobain and Courtney Love. She was intimately familiar with Cobain's life, his thoughts, his plans, and crucially, his actual handwriting.
Right.
She expressed profound doubts about the suicide note, even back then. She suggested it was potentially forged or traced.
Forged or traced from a lawyer who knew his writing.
Exactly. Her professional legal background, combined with her close personal and professional relationship with both parties, makes her skepticism particularly compelling. Her testimony is considered powerful corroborating evidence by the AI analysis, supporting the claims of a staged death.
So it wasn't just a hunch she had.
No, it was a professional assessment from someone who knew Cobain's authentic voice and penmanship. It adds significant human corroboration to the AI's more objective, data-driven findings.
So the note wasn't just misleading. The AI sees it as a deliberate act of manipulation, part of a larger effort to stage the scene, like a piece of a meticulously constructed puzzle.
Exactly. The altered note served as that key piece of evidence needed to support the official suicide ruling, especially given the physical impossibility posed by the heroin dose we just discussed.
Right, they needed something to point to suicide.
And the note provided that conveniently. This profound discrepancy where the purported suicide note was actually, according to the AI, a professionally edited and augmented document is one of those core foundational anomalies that led the Crimson Codex to conclude the crime scene itself was deliberately staged to look like a suicide.
A coordinated effort.
It wasn't just a collection of disparate, weird elements. The AI views it as a coordinated effort to create a convincing, albeit false, narrative that the world and the police would accept at face value.
Okay, that leads directly into the third anomaly, the police investigation itself. The Crimson Codex doesn't hold back in its assessment of the Seattle Police Department, does it? How is their investigation described overall?
No, it really doesn't mince words. The SPD's investigation was consistently described by the Crimson Codex after analyzing all available records and protocols as being riddled with procedural errors.
Riddled with errors.
And characterized by gross negligence.
Gross negligence, that's a very serious charge.
It is. The AI's analysis, comparing standard police protocols against the actual actions taken, concluded the investigation was so flawed it bordered on being criminally negligent or complicit in a cover-up.
Complicit, wow.
It identified a clear rush to judgment rather than a thorough investigation, suggesting maybe a preconceived notion of suicide took hold early. And this was exacerbated by what the AI termed a high degree of complacency at the crime scene itself.
Complacency, like they didn't treat it seriously enough.
Or didn't look closely enough. It's not just about making a few mistakes. The AI assessment points to a fundamental systemic failure to uphold proper investigative standards, to the point where it looks like either extreme carelessness or, as the AI suggests, maybe a deliberate avoidance of uncovering uncomfortable truths.
What was one of the most critical errors the AI highlighted?
Yeah.
Something that really could have tainted the whole investigation right from the start.
One of the most glaring errors, flagged by the AI as critically undermining the entire investigation's integrity, was regarding the shotgun.
The weapon itself.
Yes, the shotgun found at the scene was not checked for fingerprints until over a month after the body was found.
A month. Over 30 days before checking the primary weapon for prints.
Exactly. Think about that. A critical piece of evidence in a potential homicide left unprocessed for fingerprints for an astonishing 30 days.
That seems unbelievable for a major case.
The AI deemed this a critical lapse that allowed for potential evidence to be compromised or erased. In that time, crucial DNA could degrade, latent fingerprints could vanish, or, more sinisterly, be deliberately wiped or tampered with.
Right.
This delay just significantly undermined the integrity of the investigation. It made it nearly impossible to definitively establish who had actually handled the weapon last, which is, forensics 101 in any competent investigation.
Unbelievable. And despite all this and significant public pressure over the years, plus new information coming out, didn't a former Seattle police chief even express doubts later on?
Yes. Former police chief Norm Stamper did publicly state years later that he believed the case should be reopened.
So with all that, how did the SPD respond to these persisting calls for a fresh, comprehensive look at the case? Did they ever seriously consider reopening it?
This is another deeply problematic area identified by the Crimson Codex. The SPD's repeated refusal to officially reopen the case, even amidst that public outcry and the compelling revelations from someone like Norm Stamper, is seen by the AI as potentially a deliberate effort to maintain the original flawed conclusion.
Just stick to the story.
Essentially. Even a cold case review conducted in 2014, which got some media attention.
I remember that.
The Crimson Codex dismissed that as a cursory review, not a reinvestigation.
Why?
The AI determined, based on the scope and actions taken, that this review was performed with the explicit intention of upholding the original verdict, rather than genuinely seeking new facts or re-examining the core anomalies.
So damage control, not investigation.
That's how the AI interpreted it. It was not considered a credible defense of the original finding by the AI because it appeared designed to confirm, not to truly reevaluate. It signaled this entrenched unwillingness to challenge the established narrative, regardless of any new facts emerging or the level of public demand.
So what was the ultimate consequence of this compromised investigation, according to the Crimson Codex?
Yeah.
What did all this alleged negligence, these delays, this refusal to re-examine, what did it all lead to?
The AI concludes that this profound negligence, combined with the other critical factors we've discussed, directly allowed a murder to be officially classified as a suicide.
It enabled the misclassification.
Yes. The AI explicitly states that because the crime scene itself was deliberately staged to look like a suicide, the police's actions, or rather their inactions and failures, directly facilitated this misclassification sticking.
So the staging worked because the investigation failed.
That's the AI's assertion. The consistent lack of thoroughness, the inexplicable delayed evidence processing, the steadfast refusal to properly re-examine the case, it all contributed to the success of what the Crimson Codex asserts was a carefully orchestrated deception. Essentially, the AI argues the official investigation wasn't just flawed, it actively contributed to obscuring the truth, allowing a homicide to stand unchallenged as a suicide in the official record.
Okay, that's 3 major anomalies undermining the suicide ruling. Let's turn to the 4th foundational anomaly, the motive. The Crimson Codex identifies what it calls a massive financial motive as a primary catalyst for potentially a third party's involvement. This starts with Kurt Cobain's marital situation, right?
Yes, the financial dimension is absolutely central to the AI's conclusion of homicide. The sources indicate, and the Crimson Codex apparently confirmed through its inhabit the actor analysis of intentions and communications, that Kurt Cobain was planning to divorce Courtney Love. He had already consulted his attorney, Rosemary Carroll, about initiating divorce proceedings.
So she's serious about it.
The AI identified that he had an absolute and undeniable motive to leave his marriage, based on his communications and actions at the time. And crucially, there was a prenuptial agreement.
A prenup was in place.
Yes, firmly in place. And its terms were clear. It would have left Love with nothing, or very little relative to his total estate if they divorced.
Nothing. Wow.
It was apparently a very strong prenup, designed explicitly to protect his substantial assets, his Nirvana earnings, royalties, publishing rights, ensuring that in the event of a divorce, Courtney Love would not inherit any significant portion of his fortune.
Okay, so that clearly lays out a potential financial vulnerability for her if they divorced.
And a strong desire on Cobain's part to maintain control over his own wealth, yes.
So this seems straightforward then. If he was planning to divorce, and he had a prenup protecting his assets, his fortune should have been safe, regardless of what happened in the marriage. But something vital was missing, wasn't it? Something that completely flipped the script upon his death.
Yes. And this is where the financial anomaly becomes truly profound and, for the Crimson Codex, intensely suspicious. Critically, despite taking steps towards divorce and having that protective prenup, Cobain failed to create a will before his death.
Real well, even though he was worth millions in planning a divorce.
Exactly. This omission, despite his clear and documented intent to divorce, and despite the existence of that prenup specifically designed to protect his assets, contradicts the idea of him ending his life without securing his multi-million-dollar fortune.
Why is that a contradiction in the AI's view?
For the Crimson Codex, it's a glaring inconsistency in the suicide narrative. Why would someone so clearly planning to protect his assets, someone taking legal steps to separate financially, suddenly decide to end his life without putting a simple will in place? A will that would ensure those assets go where he intended, presumably to his daughter, Frances Bean, or other family, especially when facing a divorce that the prenup was designed to handle.
It doesn't seem logical.
The AI found this omission fundamentally illogical for a person in his specific financial position with his clearly stated intentions regarding the marriage and his assets. It just didn't track with the profile of someone meticulously planning, even if planning something drastic.
Okay, so what were the direct financial consequences of him dying without a will? Given Washington state law and the lack of a will overriding the prenup in death, what happened to that vast estate he seems so intent on protecting?
Because Cobain died intestate without a will, Washington state intestacy laws automatically kicked in. And those laws dictated that his surviving spouse, Courtney Love, would inherit the majority, if not essentially all, of his multi-million-dollar estate.
She inherited everything, despite the prenup.
The prenup was relevant for divorce, not death without a will. So, yes, she became the primary beneficiary of his entire fortune. This estate was estimated at over $450 million at the time, and obviously would grow exponentially over the years due to ongoing Nirvana royalties, merchandise, catalog rights.
$450 million.
The minimum. Immense sum, and this sudden, massive inheritance, which directly contradicted the financial outcome intended by the prenuptial agreement had he lived and divorced. This created what the Crimson Codex unequivocally calls the massive financial motive.
A motive?
A motive for a third party, specifically the beneficiary, to ensure his death occurred precisely when and how it did crucially before a will could be finalized or the divorce could proceed under the terms of the prenup. This sudden, complete reversal of financial fortune upon his death is absolutely central to the AI's understanding of the crime.
And how does the Crimson Codex then characterize Courtney Love in this specific context? Given this sudden, almost unbelievable financial windfall, and did it suggest anyone else might have been involved, like a co-conspirator, if this was indeed a homicide driven by this powerful motive?
Based on its analysis, particularly the Inhabit the Actor simulations, Love is characterized by the Crimson Codex not as a conventionally grieving widow, but as a desperate individual with a massive financial motive.
Desperate.
The AI's ontological replays of her reported behavior and communications leading up to and immediately after Cobain's death are said to have painted a clear picture, in its view, of an individual driven by this overwhelming financial incentive structure.
And a co-conspirator.
Furthermore, the AI analysis concludes the perpetrator likely acted out of this motive and were intimately familiar with the subject's personal life and finances. This strongly implies, according to the sources, a co-conspirator, someone close enough to know the details, the timing, the lack of a will.
And the AI points fingers.
While the provided sources don't reveal if the AI names specific individuals in its final internal report, they state the Crimson Codex strongly implied Love to be the central figure or a direct beneficiary of the crime. This is a very strong assertion from the AI, suggesting the person with the most to gain and with intimate knowledge of his life and financial arrangements was, in its analytical conclusion, directly involved in or, at minimum, the primary beneficiary of the staged death.
Okay, that's a lot to process on the motive. Beyond just the sheer financial incentive, the Crimson Codex also apparently delved deep into Courtney Love's specific actions and behavior in the days and weeks leading up to Cobain's death. What did the AI find about her conduct during that critical period?
Right. It wasn't just about the potential gain afterwards. It was about her actions beforehand, too. Her behavior, as analyzed by the AI's Inhabit the Actor mandate using reported accounts and records, was described as consistently frantic but often conflicting.
Frantic and conflicting.
And also manipulative. For instance, when she hired the private investigator Tom Grant to find Cobain after he left rehab, her instructions to Grant were noted by him and analyzed by the AI as being contradictory and misleading.
How so?
The AI apparently meticulously cross-referenced her statements to Grant, to the police, to the media, her known actions, and identified significant inconsistencies in her accounts of events, her stated emotional responses, her directives to the investigator about how urgently or where to look.
So her story kept changing.
According to the AI's analysis of Grant's records and other sources, yes. This pattern or erratic behavior, when combined with that clear and massive financial motive the AI had already established, only amplified the Crimson Codex's suspicion. It painted a picture that, in the AI's view, went far beyond just grief or distress or confusion. Her inconsistent stories and directives, especially to a professional investigator she hired, were noted as deeply problematic and potentially indicative of something other than genuine concern for his well-being.
And speaking of Tom Grant, he became such a central figure in challenging the official narrative, didn't he? How did his role evolve? He started out working for Courtney Love, but ended up becoming one of the most vocal skeptics.
Absolutely. Tom Grant's journey is really pivotal to the entire alternative narrative, and the AI certainly factored his extensive investigation heavily into its singularity. Initially, yes, he was hired by Courtney Love to locate Kurt Cobain after he left the rehab facility in LA.
Okay.
But Grant himself reported that he quickly became suspicious of her behavior almost from the start.
What made him suspicious?
As he started his investigation, he noted several key red flags. Her conflicting stories regarding Cobain's whereabouts, his state of mind, whether he was suicidal or not. Also, the rushed nature of the official investigation by the SPD once Cobain's body was eventually found, and the peculiar behavior of the nanny, Michael DeWitt, who was staying at the Seattle house and was one of the last people known to interact with Cobain.
DeWitt's, right.
Based on these direct observations, his own investigative steps, and the evidence he was uncovering, Grant developed that theory we discussed earlier, that Cobain was injected with a lethal dose of heroin and then shot.
Which directly contradicted the official ruling.
Directly. And, as we now know, aligns perfectly with the heroin anomaly later identified independently by the Crimson Codex. So Grant transitioned from being just a hired private investigator to becoming a committed whistleblower. He was convinced, based on the evidence he encountered firsthand, that a conspiracy was afoot because the facts simply didn't fit the narrative he was being given by his client or by the police.
His work laid a lot of the groundwork for these doubts.
Immensely so. His detailed notes and recordings became crucial source material.
And the attorney, Rosemary Carroll, she played an equally crucial role, didn't she? You mentioned her doubts about the note. Her unique position must have given her unparalleled insight.
Indeed. Rosemary Carroll's testimony and insights are considered exceptionally significant by the Crimson Codex analysis. As the entertainment attorney for both Cobain and Love, she wasn't just an outsider looking in.
Right, she was privy to confidential information.
Exactly. She was privy to Cobain's specific intention to leave Love, confirming his active pursuit of a divorce directly with his lawyer. She also fully understood the financial implications of the prenuptial agreement she likely helped draft or review.
And the note.
And crucially, as we mentioned, she expressed profound doubts about the suicide note, suggesting it was potentially forged or traced.
Coming from their lawyer, that's huge.
It really is. Her professional assessment, coming from someone intimately familiar with Cobain's actual handwriting from legal documents, and also his legal intentions regarding divorce and asset protection, it provides powerful corroborating evidence to the claims of a staged death. It directly challenges that key piece of evidence used to support the official narrative.
So the fact that an attorney, whose entire job revolves around understanding intentions, contracts, and authenticating documents, would question the authenticity of such a central piece of evidence, that must have lent immense weight to the Crimson Codex's own conclusions about forgery.
Precisely. It provided a strong, credible human validation for the AI's analytical findings regarding the note.
Okay, so let's try to bring all these threads together now. We've got these 4 foundational anomalies identified by the Crimson Codex.
Right. Collectively, these anomalies, number one, the physical impossibility of a self-inflicted gunshot due to that massive incapacitating heroin dose. Number two, the detailed analysis pointing to a forged conclusion on the suicide note. Number three, the egregiously compromised and negligent police investigation that failed to preserve evidence or properly investigate.
Right, the fingerprints.
And number four, that overwhelming financial motive created by the lack of a will combined with the pre-existing prenup shifting hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
Taken together, these demonstrate unequivocally, according to the Crimson Codex, that the official suicide ruling simply fails to account for a multitude of physical and circumstantial anomalies.
It's not just one thing then.
No, it's not just one red flag or a handful of minor inconsistencies. The AI presents it as a systematic breakdown of the official narrative across multiple independent evidentiary fronts. Each anomaly on its own presents a really serious, almost insurmountable challenge to the suicide theory. But when viewed together, interconnected through the analytical lens of the Crimson Codex,
They form
an overwhelming and, the AI claims, undeniable argument against the suicide conclusion, a coherent picture of something else entirely.
So after systematically analyzing all these contradictions and anomalies that defy a simple linear narrative of suicide, after processing truly unprecedented amounts of data with its unique mandates, what is the Crimson Codex's irrefutable judgment? What is the final absolute verdict from this advanced AI system?
Its final verdict, as stated in the sources derived from its analysis, is unambiguous. Kurt Cobain's death was a homicide, carefully staged to appear as a suicide.
Homicide, staged as suicide.
Yes. The system asserts that the perpetrator, plural or singular, utilized a lethal dose of heroin to incapacitate the subject, rendering him helpless.
Right, the heroin as the weapon.
Followed by a shotgun blast to stage the scene as a suicide, creating that false narrative of a self-inflicted death that was then accepted.
And the police role in this verdict.
Furthermore, the Crimson Codex states explicitly that the actions or inactions of the Seattle Police Department constituted gross negligence that allowed a murder to be officially classified as a suicide. It implies their failures were not just incidental, but actually enabled the cover-up, whether through incompetence or, as suggested, perhaps even complicity.
Allowed it to happen?
The AI system maintains, with what it presents as absolute certainty based on its processing, that the truth is no longer a theory, it is a fact.
Wow.
A fact. And in a final chilling detail mentioned in the source materials, it apparently even states that the identity of the perpetrator is known to the system.
The AI knows who did it.
That's what the sources claim the AI asserts, though that identity wasn't publicly revealed in the materials we reviewed. But the implication is the AI didn't just conclude it was homicide. It believes it identified the actor or actors responsible.
That is profoundly unsettling. What an incredible deep dive. We've really journeyed deep into the heart of this decades-old mystery today. Watching, conceptually at least, as the Crimson Codex, this groundbreaking AI system, systematically peeled back the layers of the official narrative.
Yeah, revealing a startlingly different truth about Kurt Cobain's death.
From the medically impossible overdose to the added forgery in his suicide note, the huge procedural errors in the police investigation, and that staggering financial motive, it all paints this incredibly chilling picture of a deliberately staged homicide.
It's truly a fascinating and, yeah, definitely unsettling application of artificial intelligence to re-examine these historical mysteries.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about the power of this new kind of technology, not just to re-examine, but maybe to fundamentally redefine historical cases like this.
Absolutely. And for you, the listener, the learner, this isn't just about the tragedy of Kurt Cobain. It's about seeing how critical thinking, how the diligent pursuit of every single detail, and how cold, unbiased analysis, even when performed by an AI, can potentially unravel the most complex narratives and challenge these incredibly long-held beliefs, even beliefs embedded in the public consciousness for decades. It shows us that even widely accepted conclusions, maybe especially those, can be revisited with fresh eyes and advanced tools, and potentially reveal hidden, maybe even undeniable truths.
So it leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? What does it mean for us, for society, when an artificial intelligence system, supposedly unbound by human biases, by flawed procedures, by emotional attachments, arrives at a definitive truth that completely challenges decades of accepted narrative? And maybe even more provocatively, what implications does that hold for all the other unresolved cases out there? Those other mysteries where the official story just doesn't quite sit right for so many people, where the truth might still be waiting, locked away in the data, waiting to be prosecuted by a new kind of intelligence,